All right, so what I'm going to talk about today is tab stops. And tab stops and indents get people really confused because you press the tab key on your keyboard to indent something, but you have to remember when you press tab, you are entering a character. And when you enter that character, it makes it go over a certain spot, okay? The tab stop itself, that is what makes it stop at a spot, okay? So I'm going to show you with Microsoft Word. I've gone back and forth of whether I should just do this with Google Docs or do this with Microsoft Word, and I've decided I want to show it to you both ways. Microsoft Word is the more sophisticated program, and it can do more advanced stuff. Google Docs doesn't have as many abilities, but it's similar, okay? So in Microsoft Word, the very first thing I would need to do is go to the View menu, and I would need to turn on the ruler, okay? So I am going to ask you about this stuff on the test, so I might still have a Microsoft Word. Even though we're only using Google Docs, I still might have Microsoft Word questions on the test, so make sure you are following. So I turn on the ruler so you can see that your margins are grayed out and your workspace is solid white. Over here is where you see your tab stops. This is a left tab stop. If you click on it, it will switch to a center tab stop. If I click again, I have to move my mouse away and come back, and this changes to a right tab stop. If I move my mouse away and come back, this changes to a decimal tab stops. Those are the only ones we're going to be talking about right now. So to set these up, first of all, we're going to click until we get the original one showing. This one is a left tab stop. Now, a lot of people try to think that they have to click and drag it over. You don't. All you simply do is click and come and click on the ruler to show it. Now, before we do that, I'm going to pull that off and let go. Before you do anything, if I turn on the All Characters key, this is the button that shows you all the characters, including the hidden ones, you can see the end return character that is always on every document. If I press Tab, you will see then a tiny little arrow that shows you that that is a tab. By default, Microsoft Word puts a tab at every ½ inch. So if I press Tab again, it goes over another ½ inch, tab, 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 every ½ inch. Now, if I get rid of all of those and I simply click to insert a tab stop, when I press Tab now, it ignores the default tab stop at a ½ inch and ignores the one at 1 inch and simply goes to the tab stop that I set. So be aware that if you set a tab stop, it will ignore the default tab stops to the left. Now, all those tab stops will help you line up your words. I have some words here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight, because what's the first step in changing a formatting? Highlight. So I'm going to highlight this text right now. If I click on the All Characters key, you can see I have pressed Tab before each one. Because I don't have a tab stop set, it is automatically going to the ½ inch, the default tab stop at a ½ inch. Okay, so I'm going to turn that off, but remember that there is a tab character right there. So I pressed Tab on my keyboard to enter that hidden character. So I'm going to highlight all this, and I'm going to simply, with the left tab active, I'm going to simply click and insert that tab stop. And now you'll see that the left side of those words is lined up with the left tab stop that I set. If I decide I want that in a different location, I can click and I can pull that and put it somewhere else. If I decide I don't want it at all, I click, pull it straight down and let go. And now Microsoft Word changed those tabs and moved it to the default ½ inch left tab stop. So if I click over here, and now I have switched it to a centered tab. If I come back over here and click in my ruler, now you can see I have a center tab set, and all of the words are center aligned with that center tab stop. Okay, everything is centered above each other. Notice it's not applying to this stuff down here because it is not highlighted. It only applies to the section that I have highlighted. If I decide I want to move that around, I can. If I decide I want to get rid of it, I pull it straight down and I let go, and it goes back to the default left align tab stop set at 1 inch. If I click, I'm sorry, I said 1 inch, I should have said 1/2 inch. If I click again, this is a right tab. If I come here and click and insert, I can do it all the way over here. I can click. Now you can see that the right side of the words are lined up with the right tab stop. Okay, now I'm going to scroll up just a little bit. Let's look at this section in here. If I come down here and I highlight, and again, I've got a tab before every character. There they are when I show them with the hidden characters button. If I come here and I switch to the decimal align tab stop, let's click here, and now you can see it lines up nice and neat. What do you mean it doesn't line up nice and neat? Well, guess what? The decimal tab stop lines things up by the decimal. In this line right here, it's lining it up with the decimal point. Down here, it's lining up with the decimal point. Down here, lining up with the decimal point. Again, decimal point. This one right here, it does not have a decimal point, but if there were a decimal point, that's where it would be. And so therefore, that's what it would line up. Now that works very well when it comes to math class. When you're trying to add or subtract numbers, you need to line up the decimal points. But Microsoft Word is not smart enough to know when you are talking about a decimal point in a number or a period at the end of a sentence or a period for an abbreviation. And so therefore, the decimal point is what it's really looking for, but it's also looking for that character that really could be a decimal point sometimes, or it could be the period in abbreviation or a period in the decimal. So those are decimal tab stops. Now I'm going to come back to Google Docs. Now here's where we have the problem. I have the same text. I'm going to highlight all this because what's the first step in changing a formatting? Highlight. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click in the ruler, and here I can come down here and say add left tab stop. And so that is not working. So what's going on with this one? I must not have tab set. So let's go here and put a tab in there. So when I highlight this, you see I have a left tab stop and it's lining up the left side. If I decide I want to move this one, I can click and move this around. If I click and pull it straight down, it gets moved off. If I click here and I can switch to a center tab stop, you see now that the center of the words are lining up. Notice that it was a blue triangle before, now it's a blue diamond lining up the center of the words. Okay, if I decide I want it, click, pull it off, and I can click again and switch to a right tab stop, and now the right sides of the words are lined up. So notice that on a left tab stop, the triangle had a left side that was flat, and on a right tab stop, the right side of the triangle is flat. And so it shows you which side is lining things up. Now let's scroll down here a little bit. I'm going to zoom in just a tad so we can see this better. Up here, when I go to highlight this section, I am not highlighting. What am I doing? Okay, click and drag. When I go to line this up, here's our big problem. Google Docs does not have a decimal line tab stop. And so we cannot line things up with a decimal. So in our activities that we're going to be doing, we will be doing that differently. We will only be using these three. All right. Last thing here, when we are making a new document, don't forget the very first thing that we need to do is change our default font to Times New Roman. If I can remember my alphabet and remember where it goes. And I also need to make it 12 point. I also need to change my line spacing to single. That's the first thing you do. In today's activity, you're going to be setting tab stops. The first thing you're going to do is add a left tab stop at 1.5, add a left tab stop at 4 inches, and then the right tab stop at 3.5. Notice they look different. You need to make sure you do that. And then when you do the activity, you're going to need to make sure you precede with a tab. You press tab first, then type name, press tab, wage/hour, press tab, and then once you get to the end of the line, then you press enter. Then you're going to go to the next line and you're going to type these things again and again. Of course, you'll be typing words. And I'm just taking my time. Tab, enter. Okay, so once things are lined up here, if you need to see your tab stops, we can go do that by looking at the add-on called Show. When you come down to Add-on and Show, all you'll see is Help. You turn that on by coming down to Manage Add-ons. If you click on here, you want to make sure that it says Use in this document. Once you have it chosen, Use in this document, when you come back down here to Show, nothing will show up. You have to refresh the page. After you've refreshed the page, miraculously it all comes back and you can show all and you can see all of those tabs you've wanted to see. If you also want to see spaces, and you won't be able to see them right now because they don't come on by default, you have to come down here and go to Show and Show Spaces. And then they will show up as little squares. Okay, so you can see I actually have an extra tab right there I should get rid of. Okay, so you will see those tabs and spaces and paragraph marks. All right, so I can go back here to Show and turn them off so that I don't see it. Now, for this one right here, you're going to be changing it. You're going to highlight that section because what's the first step in changing any formatting? Highlight. And so you're going to highlight that. You're going to click and pull this off and let go. Notice it goes to the next tab stop, which is over here. You will then come back here and click and add a centered tab stop, and you'll have to move it so that it lines up with the decimal point, and you'll see that when you get to that part of the activity. Okay, that's all for today.